On the day of my bachelor's graduation, I received a message that changed everything: video proof of my fiancée's affair. But the sender, her secret lover, begging me to call off the wedding. Graduation day. It was supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life. I had spent the last 4 years grinding through sleepless nights, endless exams, and soul-crushing assignments. All for this moment. Standing in my cap and gown, I felt an overwhelming sense of accomplishment as I looked out at the cheering crowd. My parents were beaming with pride, my friends were celebrating. And most importantly, Julia, my fiancée, was right there, smiling up at me as if I was the only man in the world. I had met Julia in my sophomore year, and from the moment our paths crossed, it felt like fate. She was warm, kind, and had a way of making me believe in love in a way I never had before. We had been through so much together: late-night study sessions, road trips, even moving in together last year. Our wedding was just a month away, and everything seemed perfect. After the ceremony, my family hosted a celebratory dinner at a fancy restaurant downtown. It was the kind of night where laughter filled the air, champagne glasses clinked together, and the future seemed bright. I remember sitting at the table, Julia's hand resting gently on mine, as we listened to my dad give a heartfelt toast about my achievements. "Here's to Ethan," he said, raising his glass. "A young man who has never stopped working for his dreams. And soon, he'll not only start a new career, but a new life as a husband. Julia, you're getting a good one." Julia giggled, squeezing my hand. "I know," she said playfully, leaning in to kiss my cheek. I felt a rush of warmth in my chest. Everything was perfect. And then my phone vibrated. At first, I ignored it. This was my night, after all. But it buzzed again, and again. Finally, I pulled it out of my pocket under the table, expecting to see a congratulatory text from a friend. Instead, what I saw made my stomach drop. "Unknown number. Check this before you make the biggest mistake of your life." Attached was a video file. My heart pounded against my ribs as I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the screen. Something about the message made my skin crawl. "Ethan, you okay?" Julia asked, her blue eyes filled with concern. I forced a smile. "Yeah, just a classmate sending me something." I excused myself from the table, claiming I needed to take a quick call. Stepping out into the dimly lit hallway of the restaurant, I found a quiet corner and, with shaking fingers, pressed play. The video loaded, and then my world shattered. Julia, in a dimly lit hotel room, with another man. My breath caught in my throat. My knees nearly buckled. The footage was shaky, like it had been recorded in a hurry, but there was no mistaking it. Her face, her voice, the way she touched him, the way she moaned his name. Not mine, someone else's. I clenched my jaw so hard I thought my teeth might crack. My vision blurred as 1,000 thoughts raced through my mind. This isn't real. This can't be real. But it was. My hands trembled as I replayed it, trying to find some way, any way, to convince myself it was fake. But then, the camera panned slightly, just enough to catch the other man's face. I had seen him before. Liam, Julia's so-called old college friend. I felt like I was going to be sick. My body refused to move, frozen in disbelief and agony. And then another message popped up. "Unknown number. Please don't marry her. You deserve the truth." My fingers clenched around my phone, my knuckles turning white. Who the hell was this? And why were they sending me this now? Before I could even think, another message arrived. "Unknown number. If you want proof this isn't old, check the timestamp." I swallowed hard and looked at the corner of the video. Last night. A sound escaped me, a bitter, strangled laugh. I had spent the entire day preparing for my graduation, thinking about my future with Julia, while she had been doing this. A wave of nausea rolled over me. My entire body shook as rage, humiliation, and heartbreak twisted into something unbearable. I needed to breathe. I needed to think. I needed to face Julia. I turned. My fists clenched, ready to storm back into the restaurant and demand the truth. But then, my phone vibrated one last time. "Unknown number. Meet me. I'll tell you everything." Beneath the message was an address. A choice formed in my mind. I could go back inside, look Julia in the eyes, and confront her in front of everyone. Call off the wedding in the most dramatic way possible. Or I could meet the person behind these messages. The person who had just ripped my life apart in a single moment. Taking one last glance through the restaurant window, I saw Julia laughing at something my mom had said. Carefree, radiant, a liar, a cheater. I turned and walked out the door, and into the unknown. My hands were still shaking as I drove to the address sent by the unknown number. My mind raced, filled with questions that had no immediate answers. Who sent me this? Why did they care? What the hell was I going to do when I finally saw them? The streets blurred past as I tightened my grip on the wheel. Every breath felt like I was swallowing glass. Julia. My Julia. The woman I was supposed to marry in a month had spent the night before my graduation in bed with another man. Liam. I clenched my jaw at the thought of him. That smug bastard. She had always introduced him as just a friend, someone from her college days who was like a brother. Turns out, he wasn't a brother. I pulled into a nearly empty parking lot outside a small 24-hour diner on the outskirts of town. The neon lights flickered, casting a dull glow on the pavement. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Inside. Booth near the back. I stepped out of the car. My legs heavy, my stomach in knots. The bell above the diner's door jingled as I walked in, and I immediately scanned the place. A couple of truckers sat at the counter, nursing black coffee, while a lone waitress wiped down a nearby table. And then, in the back booth, I saw him. Liam. My blood boiled. My fists clenched. I wanted to walk over there and knock him out. Right in the middle of this damn diner. But I forced myself to take a deep breath. I needed answers first. He looked up as I approached, his face tight with anxiety. There were dark circles under his eyes, as if he hadn't slept in days. Good. Neither will I, after what he did. You. My voice was sharp, barely controlled. You sent me that video. Liam nodded slowly, gesturing for me to sit. I know you want to kill me, Ethan, he said quietly. And you have every right to. I didn't sit. I wasn't about to make this comfortable for him. Then give me one good reason why I shouldn't. He exhaled, rubbing his hands together. Because I'm not here to fight you. I'm here to tell you the truth. And because I wish to God that someone had told me the truth sooner. I narrowed my eyes, my breathing heavy. What the hell does that mean? Liam ran a hand through his disheveled hair. I've been in love with Julia for a long time, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Since college. But she... He hesitated, as if struggling to find the right words. She never fully committed to me. She always kept me around, close enough to use me when she wanted, but far enough that she could keep her options open. I scoffed bitterly. And I was the option she chose to settle for. Liam flinched. I don't know if it was ever about settling. I think she just, he sighed, shaking his head. Julia needs control. She likes to feel like she has power over people. Over me. Over you. I felt my stomach twist. The Julia I knew, the one I thought I knew, was sweet, kind, loving. Had all of that been a mask? She told me she loved me. Liam continued, looking down at his hands. Said she wasn't sure about marrying you. That she needed time to figure things out. My heart pounded. Then why the hell did she still say yes to me? Liam looked up at me, his expression one of genuine regret. Because I told her I was done. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. She told me she couldn't choose, he admitted, his voice thick with emotion. She wanted both of us, Ethan. But when I said I was leaving, when I said I wouldn't keep waiting for her, she panicked. I sank into the booth across from him, my legs unable to support me anymore. She called me last night, Liam continued, begging me to meet her, saying she needed to see me one last time before she became yours forever. He let out a bitter laugh. I was stupid. I went. I clenched my fists under the table. And you slept with her. He nodded, shame written all over his face. Yeah. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The waitress walked by, offering coffee, but I barely heard her. She never planned on telling you. Liam finally said. She was going to marry you and keep pretending everything was fine. I swallowed hard, the weight of his words sinking in. Liam reached into his jacket pocket and slid his phone across the table. I recorded our conversation after. I hesitated, then pressed play. Julia's voice came through the speakers. Soft and pleading. I just needed to see you one last time. Ethan doesn't have to know. Nothing has to change. Liam's voice followed, strained. Julia, you can't do this. You can't lie to him and just walk into a marriage like this. Why not? She whispered. It's not like you're going to tell him. Are you? I shut off the recording, feeling like I was going to be sick. Jesus Christ, I muttered, gripping the edge of the table. I couldn't let you go through with it, Liam said. Not after that. I looked up at him, my vision blurry with rage. Do you love her? Liam hesitated, then nodded. I did. Maybe I still do, in some messed up way. But it doesn't matter now. She doesn't love either of us, Ethan. She only loves herself. I exhaled slowly, my pulse pounding in my ears. I had come here expecting to throw punches, to demand explanations, to break something. But now, all I felt was exhaustion. What are you going to do? Liam asked. I stared at the black coffee in front of me, my mind racing. I don't know. Liam pushed his chair back and stood. Whatever you decide. Don't let her manipulate you into staying. I let out a hollow laugh. I'm not that much of an idiot. Liam nodded, hesitating for a moment before saying, I really am sorry, Ethan. I didn't reply. I just watched as he walked out of the diner, leaving me sitting there with nothing but a broken heart and a decision to make. Call off the wedding quietly, expose her in front of everyone, or do something even worse. I didn't know yet. But one thing was clear, Julia was not the woman I thought she was. And I was done being her fool. I drove home in silence. No music. No distractions. Just the sound of my heartbeat pounding in my ears. Julia was waiting for me. She had no idea that I knew. I parked outside our apartment, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I wasn't even sure how I felt anymore. There was anger, sure, raw, burning rage. But underneath that was something worse. Emptiness. Everything I had believed about my future had just shattered in the span of a few hours. The woman I had planned to spend my life with, the one I had trusted above all else, had betrayed me so easily, and she had planned to keep lying forever. I stepped out of the car, my movements slow, deliberate. My mind replayed Liam's words over and over. She doesn't love either of us. She only loves herself. Was that true? Had everything been a lie? I took a deep breath, squared my shoulders, and walked inside. The moment I opened the door, Julia's voice rang out from the kitchen. There you are. I was starting to. She stopped mid-sentence as she turned the corner and saw me. Her smile faltered. I must have looked different. Maybe it was the way I was standing. Maybe it was the look in my eyes. But she knew something was wrong. I shut the door behind me, locking it with a slow click. She took a step closer, concern spreading across her face. Ethan, what's wrong? I pulled out my phone, tapped the screen, and played the recording Liam had given me. Ethan doesn't have to know. Nothing has to change. Her face drained of color. I watched as realization set in. She wasn't confused. She wasn't asking where the recording had come from. She knew exactly what this was. Do you have anything to say? I asked, my voice eerily calm. Julia swallowed hard. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached out. Ethan, don't, I snapped, stepping back. Don't touch me. Her eyes widened. Please. Let me explain. I scoffed. Explain what? That you spent the night before my graduation screwing another man? That you planned to marry me while sneaking off to hotels with Liam? That you were never going to tell me? Tears welled up in her eyes. It wasn't like that. Oh. I tilted my head. Then what was it like? She opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time since I had known her, Julia had nothing to say. I took a slow breath, shaking my head. You were never going to stop, were you? She hesitated. And that was all the answer I needed. I let out a bitter laugh. Jesus Christ. You really thought you could have both of us, didn't you? Her tears finally spilled over. I didn't mean for this to happen. I clenched my fists. Don't give me that. You chose to sleep with him. You chose to lie to me. You knew exactly what you were doing. I love you, Ethan. She whispered. I stared at her, disgust curling in my stomach. No, you don't. She sucked in a breath, her face twisting in pain. Yes, I do. If you loved me, you wouldn't have done this. I said coldly. She wiped at her tears, her voice shaking. I was scared. I didn't know what I wanted. You and Liam, you're both so different. I gritted my teeth. And instead of making a choice, you just kept playing both sides. She let out a choked sob. I didn't want to lose you. I ran a hand through my hair, laughing humorlessly. You lost me the second you got into that hotel bed with him. Julia covered her mouth, her shoulders shaking. For a brief moment, I felt something close to sympathy. She looked small, fragile, broken. But then I remembered the video. The way she had moaned Liam's name. The way she had whispered, nothing has to change. I hardened my heart. She wasn't broken over what she did. She was broken because she got caught. I turned toward the bedroom. Where are you going? She asked desperately. To pack. Her breath hitched. Ethan, please. I ignored her. Walking down the hallway, I yanked open the closet, grabbed a suitcase, and started throwing clothes inside. Julia followed me, panic rising in her voice. "We can fix this." I let out a sharp laugh. "Fix this? How do you fix something that's completely destroyed?" She stepped closer. "We can go to therapy, we can." No, I zipped up the suitcase. "There is no we anymore." Her face crumpled. "But we've been together for 4 years. "Yeah, and you threw it all away." Tears streamed down her face. "I made a mistake." I turned to her, my expression blank. "No, Julia. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is saying something you don't mean in a fight. Sleeping with another man for a year is not a mistake. It's a choice. And you made it." She reached for me again, but I stepped back, grabbing my suitcase. Her voice cracked. "Ethan, I love you." I met her gaze. "I don't believe you." Then I walked out. I didn't go to a friend's house. I didn't go to a hotel. I just drove. For hours. My phone buzzed nonstop, Julia calling, texting, leaving voicemails begging me to talk. I ignored them all. It wasn't until I pulled into an empty parking lot at dawn that it all hit me. I was alone. My wedding was canceled. My future, the one I had spent years building with Julia, was gone. I pressed my forehead against the steering wheel, breathing heavily. Then, slowly, a strange sense of relief washed over me. Julia had fooled me for a long time. She had played me for a fool. Convinced me she was the woman I was meant to spend my life with. But now, I knew the truth. And I was free. My phone buzzed one more time. Julia again. I stared at the screen then. Without hesitation, blocked her number. I wasn't going back. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me into forgiving her. For the first time in years, I was choosing myself. And it felt damn good. The first few days after I walked out were a blur. I crashed at a cheap motel on the edge of town, avoiding all calls, all messages, all contact with the outside world. Except for one person. Liam. I had blocked Julia, but I needed to know what was happening on her end. I didn't want to talk to our mutual friends, at least not yet, but Liam was still my best source of information. So, against my better judgment, I texted him. "Me, what's she saying?" It took a few minutes before he replied. "Liam, she's spiraling. Telling people you misunderstood the situation. That she never meant to hurt you. That she wants to fix things." I scoffed. Of course she was playing the victim. "Me, she tell them about you?" "Liam, not yet. She's still pretending I don't exist. But people are suspicious. She's calling your parents, trying to get them to talk to you." That made my blood boil. I hadn't even told my parents yet. The last thing I wanted was Julia getting to them first, twisting the story to make herself seem innocent. Me, she doesn't get to control the narrative. And in that moment, I knew exactly what I had to do. I wasn't just going to disappear quietly. No, Julia had lied to me, betrayed me, made a fool out of me, and she was still trying to manipulate everyone into believing she was the victim. I wasn't going to let that happen. So, I called my parents first. My mom picked up on the first ring. "Ethan, oh my God, are you okay?" Julia has been calling us nonstop, saying, "Whatever she told you, it's a lie." I interrupted. "I'll explain everything. Just meet me at home." When I got to my parents' house, they were waiting anxiously in the living room. My mom had worry written all over her face, while my dad, always the quieter one, simply gave me a long, measuring look. I sat them down and told them everything. From the video, to the messages, to my conversation with Liam. Every sordid, disgusting detail. By the time I was done, my mom had gone pale. My dad let out a slow breath. "Jesus, son." My mom, on the other hand, was fuming. That little witch. She called me yesterday crying, saying she was heartbroken and didn't know what happened to make you leave. She acted like you were the one overreacting. She knew exactly what she was doing, I said bitterly. My dad nodded. "So what now?" I met his gaze. "I want to tell everyone the truth. I want them to see her for who she really is." My mom hesitated. "Honey, I understand wanting justice. But I'm not out for revenge," I cut in. "I just don't want her getting away with rewriting the story. She's already trying to spin it like she's the victim. I want people to know what really happened." My dad sighed, then gave me a small, approving nod. "Then do it. The best way to destroy a liar is to let them speak first." So, I let Julia think she had control. She had no idea I was coming. The wedding rehearsal was scheduled for the following weekend. Despite our breakup, she hadn't canceled it yet, probably hoping I would come back, or at least that she could still salvage her reputation in front of family and friends. What she didn't know was that I had already sent the video and the messages to a select group of people, her parents, my parents, some of our closest friends. I didn't say a word. I just let them see it for themselves. When I walked into the venue, a wave of silence fell over the room. Julia was standing near the front, looking startled, dressed in white, as if she was still playing the part of the perfect bride. Her face brightened when she saw me. "Ethan, you." I didn't let her finish. I pulled out my phone, connected it to the projector screen, and hit play. Gasps filled the room. The video played first. Julia with Liam. The proof of her betrayal, undeniable and raw. Then the recording. "Ethan doesn't have to know. Nothing has to change." The whispers turned into shocked murmurs. Julia went pale as a ghost. She turned toward her parents, who were staring at her in horror. "Mom, Dad, Her mother slapped her across the face. "You lied to us," she shrieked. "You made us believe he abandoned you." Her father looked at her with pure disappointment. "Julia, what have you done?" Tears streamed down her face as she turned back to me. "Ethan, please, I can explain." "No, you can't," I said coldly. "Because there's nothing left to say." I turned toward the guests. I just wanted everyone to know the truth. And then I walked out. I blocked Julia on everything after that. Mutual friends reached out, saying she was a wreck, that she lost everything, her parents, her social circle, her reputation. Good. I never responded. One night, a week later, I got one last message. A new number. "Julia, I know you hate me, and you have every right to. But please, Ethan, I just need to know, did you ever really love me?" I stared at the message for a long time. Then I deleted it, without answering. Because some people don't deserve closure. Some people deserve to sit in the mess they made. And I was finally done cleaning up after her. 6 months later, I was standing at the airport, a one-way ticket in my hand. A fresh start. A new city. As I boarded the plane, I looked down at my phone one last time. No more unread messages. No more baggage. With a deep breath, I turned off my phone. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking Reddit cheating stories happening around you.